Good morning, grounds crew. Hello and welcome to the walk-off. I'm Scott Belford, joined by our best interim co-host in the biz, Joel LaFlamme. Hey, call me on TikTok. Buddy, how's your morning going, bud?
Going
There's too many
well. Going
buds.
well.
I over-budded there. I buddied and then into a bud.
That's all good. That's all good. I'm doing well. Last night was a tough game to watch. I also chased that loss with watching the Padres Angels game, which was Matt Waldron was
Mhm.
pitching last night. So I got a little knuckleball joy. He threw an absolute gem, and then I made like a TikTok about it, like kind of 2001 Space Odyssey, like the Blue Danube with the ballerina music to the fluttering of the knuckleball, and I was like, oh, these things they go together so well. So
Matt
I ended up on
Waldron,
the base.
Matt Waldron is such a fun pitcher to watch. And he's an interesting study in mastering something because, man, if you go back last year, he threw that knuckleball 25 to 30% of the time. And depending on how you view a knuckleball pitcher, I didn't classify him as one because I kind of had this thing in my head where like I want to see the knuckleball throwing over 50% before you get that tag as a
Yeah,
knuckleball pitcher. But
yeah,
this year, man, it is getting closer and closer. He's much closer to that 45 to 55% of the time. You can tell that he's starting to feel far more comfortable with that pitch. And San Diego is such a great place to throw it because it's nice all year round. You don't have
yeah.
to I know Blue Jays fans. By the way, we are going to get into mailbag, everybody. Sorry about the slow start. We're going to weed out all the casuals, as Adam Mack likes to put it, but it is so tough to watch knuckleballers in Toronto. Of course, I'm thinking of R.A. Dickey because he was like the king in July, and everyone can remember back to him throwing 2 ERAs and just being so perfect in the month of July and most of August. But watching him pitch in April and September was a exercise in madness, right? Like it was just like a 5 ERA, never can hit his spots. He's constantly picking at his nails, right? Because they're not in mid-season form yet. And you're just like, oh man, can we have San Diego as a place to just pitch a knuckleball all the time? It's the perfect combo, man.
It really, really is. And I'll apologize to the fan base because I know that as soon as I bring up knuckleballs, we're going to divert and we're going to start
Yes.
talking about the history of the knuckleball. But yeah, he is something. He's got a 92, 94 mile an hour fastball. He backdoors a slider occasionally, and then out comes out comes the floater. Haven't seen the floater pitch since Scuffy McGee is what I
Yeah.
like to say. And it's some it's it could I think it's going to lead to a renaissance in the pitch, especially here with injuries. Your fear of the high velo, high spin rate. Well, here's the counter to all of that. You're worried about injuries. Here's a pitch that will make hitters look stupid. It'll save your arm, and you don't have to worry about torque in it, right? So you've got David Fletcher who's bringing it back. George
Mm-hmm.
Kirby's got one in his arsenal. We had gone seemingly a decade with no knuckleball, and now in the span of a few years, we may have a true resurgence of that pitch.
And we may have a couple knuckleball pitchers in this Toronto Blue Jays organization. I know we've got Jordan Powell currently, and I sat down with him last month. Actually, now that I'm talking about it, everyone out there, I know I've teased this before. I will put Jordan Powell's interview out tomorrow. He is pitching with the Dunedin Blue Jays, 25 years old. His story is fantastic, Joel. It's your typical knuckleball story, right? Of like, I did everything to make it in baseball, and then I had to quit or find a new way, and I adopted the knuckleball. Like, that's literally his story. And the training that goes into it, the fact this is the guy they brought in, R.A. Dickey, to kind of mentor in spring
Mm.
training. So it was just a really cool talk. But I do love that the knuckleball, it's like arm slots. It's like the extreme lowering your arm slot, right? Is like, okay,
Mm.
well, the fastball's not cutting it. What can I do to stick around pro ball? And I just love that mentality. I love that
Yes.
doing whatever it takes.
Oh, I love it. What other sports really have a way to completely reinvent yourself and find yourself like, oh, I was a first overall first baseman draft pick, but I can't hit anything in the majors. So Tim Wakefield becomes a knuckleballer. There's just a
Yeah, man.
backdoor entrance into the highest level of this game. You can
R.A.
compete for a Cy
Dickey.
Young. You can win a Cy Young with Dickey, right?
R.A.
So
Dickey is a first round draft pick from the Texas Rangers, right? Fireball pitcher. Makes the
with no
U.S.
UCL.
No UCL. They had no idea. This is the thing, right? And if you didn't know this, so the whole reason R.A. Dickey became a knuckleball pitcher was he made the national team to go to the Olympics. He was in a photo with the other first round picks in the USA uniform. And somebody on the Rangers medical staff was like, why is his elbow doing that weird thing? And it was just the way he was holding his arm in the picture. And so they did a bunch of MRIs and looked into it, and he was born without a UCL at his a ligament in his elbow. And so the Rangers released him. They were like,
Mhm.
well, we can't. This is just a countdown until you can't pitch anymore. And so he had to literally go back and find a way to pitch that didn't put strain on his elbow. And the only pitch that really was the way was the knuckleball. Very, very cool. Anyways, we have really weeded out everyone here, but thank you to those of you who are still here. This is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon. Every single week, we comb through all of your interaction and your comments and questions. You can always reach out on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast. We've got a couple Instagram questions today. That's the Walk Off Podcast on Instagram. And we comb through your YouTube comments every single week. And of course, if you are a member of our Patreon, you get that automatic Patreon bump. And on that, let's get into it. So we're going to start with a spicy one here, Joel. And it's funny, when I first read this question, it kind of got me upset, but I feel like this is on me. I didn't communicate my stance on this well enough. So this is from Tristan Macron. My apologies if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Tristan, but Tristan Macron on Twitter reached out. He DM'd and he says, hey guys, I really do love the show. I watch it regularly, but I wonder why lately you want this team blowing up so bad. It seems like every show lately has been about rebuilding. Isn't a rebuild bad? Question mark. I just want to clarify, the idea of a rebuild makes me sick.
Mhm.
I hate the idea of a rebuild. But my problem with this team and why it feels like there are almost no other options is, what do you do with this current state? This is a team that was projected, even by outsiders in MLB, to be a definite contender for at least a wild card this year. They're not even close to that. This is a top 5 team in payroll and a bottom 10 team in record. Bo and Vladdy are free agents at the end of 2025. Now, yes, Jim Bowden of MLB.com and CBS came out a couple days ago and says Ross Atkins has stated that he would prefer to sign them than he would to trade them. This just isn't new news. This is the same lip service that they have been giving about Vladdy and Bo for years. And I have a
Try to
really
say the
hard...
other thing. Try to go the other route. We're not trying to sign. You can't say that sentence. So you have to
No.
say,
So you have to say, you have to give the lip service, right?
yes,
And that's all it feels like. So
that's all it is.
my question, I just have a really hard time believing that at this point in the relationship with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette and this team, that they don't know whether they're signing or not. I think there's honestly no way they don't know the answer to that question. And if the answer to that question is they are not going to re-sign, they're going to test free agency, and They may even say, listen, we're prepared to go back to the Jays, but we want it to be through free agency so that they're getting the absolute max dollar amount and years term that they can. So once you start doing the breakdown of where we are with this team, again, most of these guys are free agents by the end of 2025. There are some exceptions there. I think Gosman's here in 2026. Barrios has a couple extra years. George Springer is here in 2026. That's about it. So do I want to rebuild? Absolutely not. But I just don't feel like throwing money at this problem is the solution. Look at the New York Mets. Look at the absolute mess the Mets are in. So why do I want to blow this team up so badly? I don't. But as a fan, listen, I'll just tell you, I'm 42 years old. I was lucky enough to watch this team win a World Series when I was 9 and 10 years old in 92 and 93. I didn't appreciate that at the time because I'm a kid. Literally, the Calgary Flames won the Stanley Cup, my favorite hockey team, in 1989. In 92, the Blue Jays won. In 93, the Blue Jays won. As an 11-year-old boy, and think about how ridiculous this is, I thought you just wait a few years and then your favorite team wins the whole thing and you get to bask in the glory and the joy that is a championship. Well, fast forward 31 years later, and guess what, 11-year-old Scott? This is not something that happens very often. So do I want to rebuild? No. Do I want to watch another championship before I die? Yes, I do.
I know your pain. Like Oilers fan, born the year they won their first. 5 championships in 7 years, followed by 2 World Series wins by the Blue Jays. Like you said, I thought I thought championships were just
Yeah,
they grew
they
on
grow on trees.
trees.
Yeah.
Exactly. These things come all the time. Didn't God, I wish that streak would have came in my adult life instead of my childhood. At least I became a fan forever. It's because of that love of my childhood. But okay, so to play the thing of the last thing I want is to blow the team. The last thing I want is this is the competitive. I'm such a Bo fan. I want him to stay forever. 15 years, 700 million. Stay forever. I love you, Bo. But you look at Baltimore, you look at Houston. The ways back to the top are 5 to 7 year droughts of 100 loss seasons and throwing away a chunk of a decade to build up the commodities that you need to really take a run at a core and a long-term window for a championship. We can take that route. We could do the Anaheim route of things and let Ohtani just, hey, we'll sign you. We'll let you go. Well, hopefully
Yeah.
and then you go. And then that value that you had, that you could have turned, that could have taken years off of the rebuild process
Yes.
is gone. And we're sitting there right now with, do we wait 5 years or do we make the hard decision and let Kikuchi go, let Gosman go, let Bassett go, let Romano go, let them all go. But
Yeah.
what comes back is a fresh payroll.
And
And
the dream in that
yeah,
scenario is that and just so everyone knows what you're saying, Joel, like the idea behind stripping it down to that level is that instead of it being a 5 to 7 year painful root canal of a process, it's a 3 to 5 year process. You're shaving a couple years off, maybe more. And is there a way to maybe to keep a 25-year-old Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's just a blast to watch and so fun and has I mean this with respect, by the way. I'm not dunking on Vladdy here, but seems to enjoy baseball whether there's wins or losses coming in.
mhm.
I think Vladdy's the right guy. I just think the surrounding cast around him currently is all wrong and doesn't play to his strengths and has put too much pressure on him. Listen, there's 25-year-olds out there totally ready to put a team on their back. There absolutely is. Vladdy has proved he's not that guy. That doesn't take anything away from his ability at the plate, what he provides offensively, the charisma and clubhouse culture that he brings.
Mhm. Can you
We've said
sit him
this,
down?
like we've said this on the show lots. Imagine Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on the Phillies, on the Braves, where he would be like the fourth best hitter. He would be all of a sudden the best hitter because he doesn't even need to worry about.
I agree. You look at a team like the Cubs, somebody who wants to contend. The Cubs did the same deal with Chapman, where they put Chapman on, they win their World Series, and then Chapman goes right back to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, are we? I want to see that we're capable of that type of move, of sitting players down and going, listen, bringing you back is one thing. Giving you a postseason run over the next 18 months on another team and bringing a bunch of pieces back and then
Mm-hmm.
bringing you back through free agency, which is where we want. But like over the next year and a half, we probably won't be where you want us to be. So let's
And,
get you where you want to be, competitive, and then attack this thing from a place of strength as opposed to being, behind the. So.
and no, I don't want it to be Atkins who does this. I think we've both made this very clear. I think the fan base has made it very clear that if there is going to be this sort of uprooting, this tear down, that it can't be at the hands of the current front office. I will give Shapiro a little bit I know there's a lot of Shapiro hate, and listen, that stems to reason, especially with the collaborative talk he constantly has. I mean, we've seen the way he's portrayed in Moneyball. I don't think that that's all that far off. Even when we had him on the podcast, right? He was very withholding and very likable to talk to, right? And
Mhm.
that's what he has managed to do his entire career. Uh, how much of his thumbprint is on this team? I would say quite a bit of it, but I would also say how much time does Mark Shapiro have in a day, right? Like there is big time decisions and work to be done when you're renovating $1 billion stadium, right? So like how much time of the 300, I don't think that the $350 million they were spending on renovations was an afterthought for Mark Shapiro. So the majority of my blame goes to Atkins and the current staff that is doing the job. And I think we are going to just have to, as fans, deal with the fact we're probably stuck with Mark Shapiro. He's the president. He is making Rogers a shit ton of money. This is a corporate entity that only cares about the bottom line. It's one of the major reasons why the renovations were done. I know I was at the game last night and I went up to the 500s, and it's the first time I've been wandering the 500s. I went by myself. So it was just like I was just checking out stuff, right? I wasn't glued to my seat like I normally am, especially come the sixth inning when it was already like 7-2. I don't get me wrong, I'm an attentive baseball fan. I just, you know how it goes on a Monday. I wanted to see what was going on. But buddy, and I was telling Joel this before we hit record, but last night was the lowest attended game of the season. Just under 24,000 people was the count. It blew me away how much money was still being spent by those 24,000 people. It is meticulously set up to grab every last dollar from you when you're in that stadium. People were buying the City Connects, all the merch is everywhere. There is easy, small lines everywhere, right? Like the lines were full, 2 or 3 deep every time you walked around, but they were just churning out beer, churning out food, churning out all of this money making stuff. So even with only 24,000 people being in the stadium on a Monday, this is a stadium that has been designed to be a spectacle for people who don't care about baseball, and it is. It is a
Mhm.
fun place to be, and it makes me nervous that when a corporation owns your ball team and all they care about is the bottom line and they're seeing that bottom line, there's just no way Shapiro loses his job, in my opinion. So are we going to get a new GM? I would think so. That's the fingers crossed. Can they spin it from the corporate side of things that Atkins should keep his job? I damn rights they can. We watched it happen last season.
I'd just love to see like somebody do an interview with Shapiro as he kind of like does a lap around the concourse, and you see him stop at every single thing and like get a pin and then a hat, and then his face gets painted, and then he gets a big foam finger, and then he just literally just, I don't know, I need one of these things. All
Yeah.
the bells and whistles constantly are getting his attention. Oh yeah, baseball's over there. Like, to the inside is the baseball game, to the outside is all the bells and whistles, and he's just like, oh yeah, we'll get to the game. Oh, give me 4 of those and 2 of those, an extra large one of these. I got a friend back home. It's just like he loves the accessories. He loves the
Like
extra
they've
stuff.
got a full arcade. They're
Yeah.
literally, and their slogan of the arcade is your kid doesn't need to watch the game. Like it's
Is that the slogan?
no, but
Oh God.
but I mean, there's an arcade in the stadium. Come on. Anyways,
It should be called pay attention.
yeah.
Pay attention.
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention. Okay. Let's get into the next question, which was sent to me by Greg on Twitter. He said, I was surprised by this. That's all he said. And then he sent me another tweet. And this is a tweet that gives Bo Bichette his stats since June 3rd, 2023. This is a full calendar year, Joel. My eyes popped off the page a little bit because I was not expecting this. This is at 132 games, 573 plate appearances. Bo Bichette is hitting a batting average of 262, on base percentage of 298, a slug under 400 of 392. He has a 690 OPS. Just a reminder that in 2024, the league average OPS is 699. So Bo Bichette over the last year below this year's average OPS, which is down 40 points from last year's. So I don't know how the math works out there, but it's not good. He has a walk rate of 4.4%, a strikeout rate of 20.1%. His WOBA is 298, and a ground ball rate of almost 50%. WRC plus of 89. Just a reminder, WRC plus 100 is average. So anything below that, below average, anything above average. Those are not the numbers of a generational member of your core. Bo Bichette has seemed completely checked out, and this is all speculation, Joel. This is me trying to read a man's body language.
I don't think it's speculation.
But it
I
sure
don't think it's
feels that way.
speculation. It feels exactly that way. I feel with Bo, he is the competitor.
He feels so checked out, Joel. I don't think it's even affecting his value. I think other organizations are looking and being like, yeah, he's not even trying at this point. Like, I shouldn't say that. I don't think it's an effort thing. It's more of a mental thing.
If I'm a GM for another team, I'm like, yes, Bo, keep sliding. I can make this trade and get less. I'm all in. I know exactly who you are as a baseball. If I'm another GM, I'm salivating. Keep dropping your value, Bo.
Yeah.
I will pay whatever it takes to bring you here. I'm still under the belief that a 26, 27-year-old kid who's got multiple hit leads, like I love the kid. And it's absolutely checked out because it's not just his hitting, it's his fielding. It's both. It's every element of his game. It's his running. Every element of him as a professional baseball player, he is the worst runner on the team right now. He is the worst fielder on the team right now. He's arguably one of the worst hitters on the team. Everything to him is checked out, and it's not just his place on the team and his feelings of everything. I think it has to do with that 50%, that 50-point drop in OPS across the league. He sits there and he tries to drive a ball out, and it would go out, and now it falls into a glove 15 feet shy. It's that year. And he goes, well, what do I do? Like, that was a home run. That was a 5,000 OPS that's now turned into 0. I don't even like, am I supposed to be this player? Who do you want me to be when you're taking that? Look at Vladdy. Like, this is across the league. This is Manny Machado. This is Francisco Lindor. This is Julio Rodriguez. This is
Mm-hmm.
stars across the league are perplexed on where power is right now, unless you're Aaron Judge and
Yeah.
capable of getting that extra 20, 30 feet anyways. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really matter to you, right? So yeah,
I mean,
look, I think
Joel, think about how rough this is, what I'm about to say. Daniel Vogelbach hit in the cleanup spot last night
mhm.
ahead of Bo Bichette, and deservedly so. What the frick? Like,
He's got a
come
nice swing.
on.
Like he's up there putting good swings on balls, right? It's evident. You see him up there. He looks for the fastball, can handle the fastball, can take something off and handle the breaking ball. If it's out over the middle of the plate, he smashes it to the gaps and can score runs.
Mhm.
And it's a wild situation where Vogelback is the guy that you were almost like gonna DFA, and then he gets some at bats, and you're like, well, he's the best player on the team now. You're like, that's a terrible place to be in, where your guy who was 26th on the depth chart can jump to third.
Oh,
You're like, oh. um, Also, I'll play it on like with Bo and the competitive side of things. Like he wants to win. He wants to win. The guy wants to win,
yes, he
and
does.
having that feel of winning, and then slowly get taken away, and you have a concept of why, and then you're like told, no, that's okay. We know what we're doing, Bo. You're a kid. And he's like, are
Hmm.
you sure taking Marcus Simeon away from me was the best thing? And they're like, we think it is. Trust us. And you're like, you still haven't found a legitimate replacement yet. And they're like, don't worry, it's coming. That's like, it's been 3 years. Don't
Don't
worry.
worry, Bo. We have six second basemen. We have six of them for you.
Well, it's like, okay, you got rid of Simeon, but like, please don't get rid of Matt Chapman. That makes me feel really comfortable. And I had an amazing defensive season with him next to me. And then he's gone and checked out defensively. Doesn't feel comfortable. Doesn't have that. That matters to him. You look at Simeon leaving and Bo knowing that Simeon's probably going to leave, and that like the borderline tears in that press conference were like, what does
Yeah,
Simeon mean to you? And it's just like, he can't even contemplate what the game's
yeah.
going to be without that piece in his life, right? And it's terrible that the idea of surrounding youth with professionalism, but the right professionalism to speak to those players who've been through that grind. Hey, Simeon was sort of a similar grind, right-handed hitter who at that age struggled. Oh, got through it. Oh, what do you have to pass on? How do you get Bo there a few years earlier with your experience, right? And all of those
And we've
things.
talked about this before, Joel. I mean, just the idealism differences between the Anthopoulos regime and the Shapiro regime. This current rendition of the front office truly has a blueprint where it feels like everyone is a square peg in a square hole,
Mhm.
and that's just not humans. That's just not people. Everyone picks things up differently. Everyone struggles with different things. Everyone views the world differently. So when you're trying to make a one size fits all in baseball, you're going down the wrong path, in my opinion. And I mean, I feel like this Blue Jays team over the last 3 or 4 years is a pretty good example of that. And just a lack of understanding for some of the players and what they meant to that team at that time. Right. So I would love to hear from the grounds crew. So, you folks right now on YouTube, if you're on audio, by the way, thank you so much. We do love and appreciate our audio listeners. You can feel free to reach out on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast, because I do want to get the general consensus of the fan base here on what's wrong with Bo. What are you seeing out of this kid? And I want the full range here from, is he checked out? Maybe you've
Can I?
noticed something. Maybe you think
I
he's
got one more
washed.
note.
That's
I got
crazy,
one more
but
note for it.
please.
My last note is that I don't see him slamming his helmet when he hits into a double play. He hits into a double play, and there was like 2 months ago peak frustration when it would happen.
Yeah.
Slam the helmet. Fuck, pissed, just mad. Hits into a double play now, just curls back, heads to the dugout. He expects it.
Hmm.
He's in the middle of it, and the frustration isn't even there. And the fact that the frustration is there, it means the passion's not there. And if the passion's not, he's a passionate ball player. He
He
plays
is a
with his
passionate
heart.
ball player.
And
I mean,
yeah,
I truly do believe if the answer was there, someone would have already tried to, like this is just a giant mental slump that he is in right now that he just has to overcome. And that's the thing with a ball season, right? Is that sometimes you dig a hole so big that you almost feel like there's no way out.
I know that it's the last thing that would ever make sense, and I'll take all the comments will come in like, Joel, you're an idiot. Just like, just bring Derek Jeter into town for a weekend. Nobody has to know. Nobody has to know. You don't have to expose it to the public, but just let him and Bo go out to a
Make him
couple of
sign an
dinners.
NDA.
Yeah, except you don't. We won't tell the Yankees fans that you're here, Derek. Okay, we won't tell our fans that you're here. Just have a conversation with him, and because that's where Bo looks to Derek Jeter as his guiding light in this game,
He does.
and he maybe sit down and open a door, and Derek Jeter's sitting there and go, "Hey kid, you want to have dinner? What's going on? What's in your head?"
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to have a bad team around me, but so maybe I'm
Yeah.
not the right person to have here. Bye, and then that's it. Just waste
So
time.
yesterday on MLB Mondays, which is a Patreon exclusive, we were talking Spencer Horwitz and
Yes,
why he's not up with this team yet. A question that we weren't really able to answer outside of can he get enough playing time? He's switching to a new position at second base and still needs reps there, I guess. But we got a comment from Deb with Patreon. So the Patreon bump there, obviously, if you're a Patreon member, you get your questions and comments in the mailbag. And she goes, if this was a 21-year-old with a famous father, he would have already been up long ago. I hate that bias, but it feels true. It does feel true. It does feel true.
I think a message to young players right now is if you're like 14, 15 years old and you've yet to be scouted and you want to take a real run at this thing, go find a professional baseball player, get him to adopt
Yeah.
you, put a junior at the end of your last name.
My stupid dad couldn't even make the majors.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you go like, Ken, can you adopt me? And you're Ken Griffey the third. And you've got, this, oh, you just jumped to the second round. We haven't even seen you play. But clearly the blood, the genetics are there. How much that carries, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's got to be a thing for scouts where like, hey, let's let's go after this guy, and when he doesn't pan out, you go, who would have thought he wouldn't have panned out? Silver
Spencer
spoon.
Horwitz, for those of you who didn't know, one player of the week in AAA last week. He, in 6 games, scored 6 runs, had 10 hits, 3 doubles, which put him back into the AAA lead for doubles, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, and an OPS of 1450. Spencer Horwitz has been taking the primary leadoff spot for the Bisons most of the season. He's got an on-base percentage of over 450 and again leads minor league baseball, AAA, with doubles. This is a team that just lost 7-2 to the Orioles. I mean,
A team that just brought up a top ranked second baseman, a
yes,
second round draft pick, right? Like they're doing it and they're winning. They're
and
not
they're winning.
afraid to bring up youth and see how they play.
Spencer Horwitz, 26 years old, turns 27 this August. I think it's time to see what he has personally. And I know I'm not alone. I know this fan base is ready for a change. The big stumbling block is still if Atkins does this, it looks like a mistake on his part because why the hell was Spencer Horwitz not in this lineup right from the beginning? Why did we spend money
Oh,
on a Daniel Vogelbach when we've got one? And listen, Vogie is doing quite well, but
it's allocation
of
piece,
funds.
like what where you're alloc we're in a position where we got Vladdy at third. You went and got a million third baseman in the offseason. You're in a position where you went and got Daniel Vogelback, but Spencer, we all were sitting there going, Horwitz deserves a shot after what he did last year and what he's
Mm-hmm.
consistently done in the minors. And it's time. It's just time. Davis Schneider, it's time. It's been time. What do they have to do? So it's
I mean, the only excitement that we've had on this team this season has been the Buffalo Boys. It's been the continuation of success from Davis Schneider. I know that Ernie Clement is looking like a utility guy that sits on the bench because that's what he is. Everyone's upset with his numbers. Well, the guy barely plays. I'm not making excuses for him. But even with Ernie Clement, maybe he's the guy you send down and give Spencer a try, right? Anyways, we can harp on this all day long. It's one of those question marks with this team where I'm like, I don't get this one. I don't
what are you
understand what.
looking at analytically if you have doubles and on base?
Yeah,
Doubles is slugging percentage. That's how you drive in runs.
yeah,
Doubles.
yeah.
Doubles drives in runs. You can get
Mm-hmm.
a double with a guy on first. He scores because home is further away than second. That's a further throw for the outfielders. So you can go home. You
Yeah.
know, it's
And
like, do they know this?
I mean, I do want to put that asterisk here for everyone. All right, Spencer Horwitz and both Joel and I know this. He's not going to save this team. That is not what we're saying. But when you're desperate for offense like this organization is, and you've got a guy getting on base 450, like 45% of the time, even if he takes 100-point drop going to the majors, which is so rare. Normally, you don't take that. Normally, your eye from AAA. You know, your hits may go down, but like your walk rate is normally pretty decent.
Like,
So
just
even 100 points, you're still at an on base percentage of 350, which is far better than the league average. What are we doing here?
you're just, I know this is weird. This is so obvious, but 50% of this guy comes up to the plate 200 times. Okay. 200 times. He only, he gets on base 90 times, 110 outs. Like 100, you don't get out as much. You've got more outs to work with. You don't just have a guy who's going 0 for 4 and occupying 4 outs per game. You've got a guy who's only 2 outs per game. All of those 27 outs that you have to work with, Spencer Horwitz, like, I'll only take 2 of those. I'll consistently only need 2 of those outs. The rest of you, you can have one. You can have an
Mm-hmm.
extra out, and you can have an extra out to work with. I don't like outs. I don't like getting out, so I'll only take 2 per game. You guys can have rest.
Yeah,
The other 25 is equally split amongst you guys. I just don't like getting out. No,
I think
that's
I
a AAA skill.
even there is value even in just bringing him up to showcase him to other organizations, right? If this is the route we have decided to go, and maybe it is, maybe this team does wind up getting stripped down at the end of the year. And maybe Spencer Horwitz is one of those guys where there's not a spot for him at first base and they move on from him. You're going to get more showcasing him at the majors, showing he can play with the big boys than protecting him down in AAA. But anyways, we can go on about this and the lack of offense and stuff, but we'll move on here. The next comment is from Jenna on Twitter. I love this one because I got this morning, and she's like, hey, Scott and Joel, I need you to explain what has just happened with Tucupita Marcono of the Padres. Is he being suspended? Question marks. This whole thing seems like a really big deal. So to start with, this is a really big deal. So this is from Robert Murray. He's goes into the full suspension and what's happening here. So this is from Robert Murray, who is an MLB insider, and he writes with Fanside. Okay. So he says Padres infielder Tucupita Marcono has been banned for life for violating MLB's gambling policy, MLB announced this morning. Padres Jay Groom Phillies Jose Rodriguez, Diamondbacks Andrew Saalfrank, and the Athletics Michael Kelly have all been suspended for 1 year for betting. Tucupita Marcono placed 231 Major League Baseball bets, including 25 bets on the Pirates. He's betting on the Pirates, Joel. Not only is he an idiot giving up his career, he's betting on the Pirates? Come on. When he was on the injured list, so he wasn't playing at the time, but he was on the injured list. Still, you're on a Major League Baseball team. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
he lost all of his parlays involving the Pirates and won only 4.3% of his Major League Baseball bets. This guy has lost his career. He bet $150,000 worth of money. Now, these other guys, just so everyone is aware, Andrew Saalfrank bet $445 on baseball, with 444 of that on MLB-related bets, and lost all of them. Saalfrank only won... Michael Kelly bet $99.22 on Major League Baseball games, an average of $9.92 per bet. Kelly only won 5 of those bets.
Oh.
Yeah. He only won 5 of those bets, a net win of $28. Jay Groom bet $450 on 30 MLB game-related bets, an average of $15.12 per bet, a net loss of $433. And then Jose Rodriguez bet $750, with 724 of those being lost. These are kids that were betting on baseball, and this is one of the big things with getting in bed with betting companies, right? Is that it is so prevalent and it is so pushed that these kids are betting for fun, and they're not even betting big money, and they're losing their careers over it. They're losing a full year being suspended. I mean,
I'll get like really passionate about it. I think content creators out there and Major League Baseball should be ashamed of itself for what they've done to the game over the last 5 years with this betting stuff. I've never bet on baseball ever. I've never bet on baseball once in my life. It's fine if you bet on sports, it's fine. But it's an addiction. It's an addiction that I've seen destroys lives. It's destroying these lives. Imagine destroying your life for your dreams for $100.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my mind around that. And is it these players' fault? No, it's the system. This system advertises the bet. This is this game. Here's the under. Here's the over. Hey, bet on this guy hitting a homer. Bet on this. Bet on this.
Yeah.
I don't need that to enjoy the game. I don't need it. I don't need it. I never needed it. I know the history of this game. I know what happens to people who bet in this game. I don't want history to repeat itself. 100 years ago, the game was overwhelmed with betting. And you know what happened? They brought in Kennesaw Mountain Landis, and that kept African Americans out of the game for 2 decades. Yeah. Betting kept African Americans out of the game for 2 decades because they had to bring in an oligarch to literally run the league who would not let anyone else in. He would not let anyone break the gentleman's agreement of banning African Americans. And that's what happened. That was the punishment that we had to face because the game was so overwhelmed with betting. Okay. Now here we are. And I sit there and I go on TikTok, and the baseball content creators who call themselves baseball content creators, and they sit there doing lives. This is the parlay. This is what you bet. This is what you bet on.
Joel,
I'm balling up my fist right now because it makes me so angry.
I remember as a kid hearing the old adage, history repeats itself. And as a kid, I never understood that. I was like, that's stupid. How can history repeat itself? Everything moves forward. But I mean, here I am, and we really are watching history repeat itself with baseball. I mean, the biggest scandal in this game, or one of them anyways, was the Chicago White Sox, Shoeless Joe, the whole team there that literally threw games because of the betting that was involved in the sport at the time. And to watch it start to happen again, like even just look at When was the last time? And I would love to hear from you folks in the comment section as well, grounds crew. Okay, because we will revisit this next mailbag. When was the last time you remember a betting scandal outside of this year? We've already had a few, right? I mean, the biggest player in the world, Shohei Ohtani. I mean, and who knows? Would
I
Shohei would Shohei be suspended for a year if he was just Michael Kelly? Like I'm
I
not saying that Ohtani should be suspended. And obviously, what has happened with him and Ipe sucks, and the fact that I trusted a guy so much with his finances and then got screwed so badly. This isn't what we can. There's all the. I'm getting distracted here, but just I want you to think about that. When was the last time there was a betting scandal? And we've had like 3 fairly major ones this year. This is not going to stop. This is absolutely
This is
going to continue.
cocaine in the 80s.
Yeah.
This is steroids in the 90s. This doesn't. How many more are doing it?
That is a great question, Joel. How many guys are doing it that haven't been caught? And
David
like
Fletcher's caught in the same thing right now too. He's caught in a betting scandal with the same bookie as Ohtani, right? It's like I don't know. This is really sketchy stuff. That all of this was found out so quickly. Suspensions were handed out here so quickly.
yeah,
But the Ohtani thing was
was a
floated, and what
was
is
a
it?
3 month. Yeah, like
And we
it's
don't even
really
has it really truly been investigated properly at this point? Still, like that seems strange that you can come to a verdict here on
in
multiple cases
in
over here,
3
but over
days, in
yeah,
3 days.
I'm just like feels dirty, feels dirty and broken.
And honestly, man, it breaks my heart for these kids. Like you heard the numbers. Like the one guy, he put 99. Like we listen, I bet
Here,
on
my
baseball
career's over.
sometimes. Like literally, like there it is, gone. My whole livelihood, everything I've put into baseball over $99. And I
You just
know he's
bet a
suspended
hundred
for
dollars
like
on 850 grand loss if that was your like rookie contract or whatever you got suspended. You lost your entire season. Oh,
yeah,
that's a hell of a bet.
yeah.
Damn,
Breaks my heart. All right.
it really
Again,
does.
grounds crew, please leave your comments. I know that this is a sticky subject. I bet on baseball from time to time, so I'm I enjoy it from time to time. But I also can see how addicting it is. I mean, I haven't bet in over a week because I lost $140 when I was like, this is stupid. Like when you're chasing bets, you don't bet, Joel, but like if you lose and then you're like, I can get it back, right? And then you start making bets that are more risky or outside what I would normally bet on, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I was up $40 and I put an extra 100 in, and now I'm down all of it. So, which is why betting is a thing, because people lose. I mean, I read you. He what? It was 4.3%. He won 4.3% of his bets. That's insane.
I
You would
think out
think
of
a
all those baseball
monkey
players,
would win more bets than that.
out of all those baseball players you mentioned, I think there was like $80 in profit, and like most of them were huge negatives. That's the 150 grand bet to 4.5% victory. Like that's 150,000 spent. You won 4.2% of your bets. You're right. A monkey on dialysis could pull that off. It's just like, I don't, it just tells people out there if these people do this all the damn
Mhm.
time and they don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. The next question is from YouTube. Our comment, I should say, is from Becky Peterson, who commented on our long toss from Sunday. She says, I'm so glad this week you all actually talked about the games. Last week, you were all trying to be armchair owners and deciding the future of the franchise. So, but before I read the rest of Becky's here, I will say, Becky, the big thing with last Sunday, is this team was coming off a 5-1 6-game stretch. Really easy to talk about the games when it's all roses and sunshine. The week before, they were coming off, I don't even want to get into it, but I think it was 2 wins over. They were 2-5 over the 7 before that, right? And it's just my brain automatically thinks more big picture as soon as it just seems like the season is on the line, right? So, yeah, we are guilty of that. I think all sports fans are guilty of when their team's losing, they tend to go down the rabbit hole of, well, how do we fix this? Who's being shipped out? Who's being brought in? Who's being fired in the front office? So on and so forth. But I'm glad you enjoyed this Sundays, Becky. And again, if the Blue Jays can give us some wins, believe you me, we will talk about the games. She says, I was wondering about Kikuchi. The last 2 games haven't gone so well. Are you all worried that is something that is going to slip back into, that he's going to slip back into poor performance? Also, I can't remember hearing about the City Connects uniforms. What do you all think about them? Maybe I missed the discussion that I was cleaning in the morning here in Poland. So she's in Poland, which is cool. We've got international listeners. Thanks so much for the interesting discussion. Enjoyed it. I do miss Adam. Hope he can come back soon. Too bad that he has to work on Sunday evenings, or maybe he's just taking care of his wife. And that is, I guarantee, what it was. She's got a broken leg and is pretty down and out right now. So I'm sure he was taking care of her on Sunday. He also plays softball on Sunday nights. So anyways, all the best to Mr. Adam Mack. He will be back, everybody. He's just going through some stuff right now. So, Joel, thank you so much for being here. And on that, I will throw to you your thoughts on Yusei Kikuchi and what we have seen out of him his last 2 starts. 2 starts that Becky's correct. They have been troublesome.
I don't really have too much fear. I think 360 is about where his ERA is right now. I think that's kind of where it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Kikuchi will be the kind of guy who will go on stretches that drop that ERA, but then he'll have a couple of bad games that bring it up. So it's just like, if you look at his season so far, it's been a really, really good season. But then he's got those blips, and sometimes a guy puts out a 360 ERA like every time out, like he throws 5 and he gives up 2, and he's kind of just consistently that guy. Kikuchi's the type of guy who's like gonna put out like a 2-hitter or a 3-hitter, really dominant, like 10 strikeout game, consistently be that guy, but then have a couple of games that are 5-6 runs, and that's where the ERA comes from. I have no worries about him. I feel like he's really comfortable in where he is right now as a pitcher. And it's just the standard thing of 32 starts a year. About 10 of them, you're going to have your best stuff. 10 of them, you're going to be totally lost out there. And then another 10, one pitch is going to work, another one's not. And it's kind of that balancing act of how you feel on that given day and the opponent that you're facing against. Are they prepared for you? Is this a good matchup? Right. So I really think that it plays more to those situations. I don't see anything with Kikuchi that I'm like worried about long term, that he's found some sort of something wrong with his game. No, I just think that a couple of bad starts doesn't have my radars up that he is falling back into some 2000
troublesome area. Yeah.
Yeah,
And honestly, Joel, I feel the same way. The only thing I did notice was that his fastball usage was down over the last couple of games. I don't know if that's coincidence or if that's something that they're trying to do, or if that's just a league-wide average as well. We're seeing fastballs throwing less and less. So
we've heard
I'm
a
not
lot
100% sure. I definitely don't want Yusei to shy away from his fastball because it is such a great it's a great weapon. It's a great weapon. A lefty who can throw 98 with the kind of rip on it that he has is.
We talked about that on Long Toss, that
yeah,
there's a standard concept across the league that fastballs are being hit incredibly well. And I'm like, my first disagreement with that is league OPS is 699. Nothing's getting hit well.
Yeah.
Stop listening to anybody who says don't throw fastballs because fastballs are getting hit. Nothing is getting hit. 0. Oh, the fastball is the hit pitch that's getting hit the hardest. Shh, I don't care. Kikuchi, you throw 96 left-handed. Your fastball is unique across the league. Don't let league-wide averages on a pitch tell you how to pitch. That just seems ridiculous to me.
So I want to talk about Robert Suarez for just 1 second while we're talking about fastballs. He has been absolutely dominant at the back end of the pen for the San Diego Padres, currently holding a 0.69 ERA and already almost a full 2 wins above replacement. He is a really interesting subject because after his 3rd start of the year, now Robert Suarez has 3 pitches, a changeup, a slider, and a fastball. He has literally eliminated every pitch but the fastball, and he has only thrown fastballs since that 3rd game of the season, and he has been dominant. This is a 32-year-old that struggled to find his footing in the league, even though he had such nasty stuff. And you know what? This is another one size doesn't fit all. You know what? If you're going to get outs with nothing but your fastball, go to it. This is over 26 innings. He's only allowed 13 hits. Okay. Earned runs 2 all year. He's given up 2 home runs all season. He's given 6 walks up. I know that ERA not everyone is on board with for relievers. So if you're a whip guy, walks, hits, innings pitched, 0.731.
I'm an ERA guy.
Yeah, because you like what happened.
Yeah, I like what happens.
But I mean, he's striking out 9 per 9 innings and has been without a doubt the most dominant force at the back end of any pen. He already has 17 saves, and we're only 1/3 through the season. He's on pace for 45 saves this year.
Have you seen the guy who's setting up for him now, Jeremiah Estrada?
Yeah.
Have you seen this guy who throws I think they call his pitch the chitter. It's a changeup splitter that he throws that no one can hit, and struck out 13 in a row, like set the Major League Baseball record for consecutive strikeouts in a row with a fastball chitter combo.
And think about just the difference you're looking at in a pitch as a hitter, right? You face that, you face the chitter in the 8th, and then all of a sudden you go out in the 9th and you're dealing with a guy throwing 100 with like a 14-inch rip on his fastball. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
do the 3-pitch combo of Waldron starts, Estrada sets up, right?
Yeah.
And then Suarez ends it, right? That's some fun. And
listen,
the hangover effect from Waldron, right? That
absolutely,
plays into
man. Absolutely. And this goes back to what we're saying about one size doesn't necessarily fit all. You know, sure, throw fewer fastballs if it's working for you, but don't act like everyone should be throwing less fastballs, because Robert Suarez is proving that if you've got a good fastball, you can roll with one pitch.
There's a play to the Seattle guys as well. Cal Raleigh could give 2 shits about any of that stuff. Like, I remember, I think Bryce Miller is their pitcher, and I think he called something like 25 consecutive fastballs in a game. Like, they're like, hey, what's up with 25 consecutive fastballs? And they're like, they weren't hitting it. They weren't looking fastball. I could tell. I kept putting one down until I saw them gear change in the 4th inning to be like, I guess we should start looking for fastballs now. It's just like, it's classic baseball thought processes are they all work. The cliche, you understand it, right? And also, to go back to Buck Martinez, if you've watched this team for any period of time, Buck will come in and say the most important pitch in Major League Baseball is a well-located fastball. And I will believe that till the end of my days.
Yeah. No.
Gagne came on and we were talking to him, and it's like, what's your go-to strikeout pitch? Fastball low and away. Yeah. Right? Like, that is, if somebody's telling you you don't need a fastball, Well, none of your breaking stuff, none of your off-speed pitches are off-speed or breaking pitches unless you have something straight to tunnel off of it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just it's pitching.
Okay, we're getting along in the tooth here, so we will wrap things up. I've got a couple last questions or comments here. This one I love. This is on our from our Friday show when we were talking about the Negro League stats being integrated into the record books. So Scott Carter on YouTube, and this isn't a question or anything. This is just him imparting some wisdom, and I loved it. So he says, there is one thing with the way that MLB frames the Jackie Robinson story that rubs me the wrong way. They always refer to him as the first black player. This is not actually true at all. Before 1884, there was a few black players in Major League Baseball, and there were lots in the minor leagues. When Moses Fleetwood Walker started to become a player that people started to notice and fear in Major League Baseball, the league did not like it. All the owners got together and made what was known as the Gentleman's Agreement, worst
Mhm.
gentleman's agreement ever, to ban all black players. I believe there were 4 at the time playing in the league, with the minors following in 1891, expelling hundreds and hundreds of players. It feels like MLB likes to refer to Jackie as the first player because it doesn't sound quite as bad as being the first player since we purposely kicked all of them out. In some documents, you see Jackie referred to as the first player in modern baseball.
Mm.
So I just want to say to Scott Carter, thanks, man. That's really imparting some cool facts about the history of baseball. And I know that he got a ton of likes on that. And there were a bunch of people who were commenting, like, thanks, man. I didn't even know that. So there you go. Jackie Robinson, not the first. In fact, there were
No.
lots of black players that were on their way to major leagues before a gentleman's agreement was made.
Yeah, Moses actually played with his brother. His brother was on the same team. Moses Fleetwood Walker played with his
Mm-hmm.
brother on the team in the 1880s. I think what Major League Baseball considers is that Jackie's the first major league player when the leagues were combined, is what they're kind of like getting at, is that in the 1880s it was still kind of like a territory system in Major League Baseball. I'm going to compare it to like pro wrestling, is that like it was territories, and then WWF came along and grabbed everybody and made
Yeah.
Major League Baseball to be a singular umbrella. So under the umbrella that was an American League and a National League, Jackie was the first. But yes, Moses was truly the first. And the place where I got that information when I was a youth, when I was young, do you know where did you learn that? Do you
I
remember
learned
where you
it.
learned that?
I learned it from Ken Burns baseball.
I learned it from Little Big League.
Oh,
In Little Big League, Jason Robards, the grandfather of the
maybe that's
twins,
where I learned it then. I totally forgot.
he's quizzing his grandson. They quiz each other. They have like insane baseball intellects. And the grandson's like, "Who was the first African American baseball player?" And he goes, "You want me to say Jackie Robinson, but the real answer is Moses Fleetwood Walker." And I was like, and it's like in Little Big
Yeah.
League, and I'm like this little kid, and I'm like, "What does that
You're
mean?"
like,
And that
what?
information got
That's
ingrained in
crazy.
my brain,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I love that.
but it's a really, really great point. And here we are with the stats being integrated. I think that, you know, Moses Fleetwood Walker kind of deserves, where's that day? Where's that
Yeah.
celebration of him in some way, shape, or form? I don't in any way want to take anything away from Jackie. This isn't me saying Jackie isn't Jackie Robinson, or
No, of
1%
course
his
not.
effect on the game
Or
should be
what
taken
he
away.
went through. Absolutely.
No, it should just be a little bit more recognition that somebody was there 60 years before, and that kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a little more recognition to be handed out, which I think is always a good.
So we will end on some positive comments from our Eric Gagne interview. So
Yeah.
if you didn't get a chance to watch our interview with Eric Gagne, it is pretty evergreen. We're not really talking anything that's going on right now in Major League Baseball. So if you do get a chance to check it out, I would suggest you do so because it is a very interesting talk on where pitching is at right now in Major League Baseball. And of course, he starts to get into some of those really fabled stories of his career. The one that really stood out is Joel really started to pick his brain about the battle he had with Barry Bonds, where they had a much cooler gentleman's agreement than the owners in Major League Baseball did, where they agreed because they were both in Japan at the time, right?
Yes. 2 years
And
previous.
two years previous to
yeah.
this, and Bonds was complaining that he always gets walked and no one will just challenge him. And Eric, being one of the studs on the mound at the time, had a little hubris at the time, had a little confidence, and he was like, "I'll challenge you, big guy. I'll go head to head with you, all fastballs. I get one off-speed pitch." And anyways, not to spoil it, but the story is fantastic, and you should definitely check it out. So these are some of the.
On top of it, it's in the middle of his consecutive save streak that he decided to do this.
Yes.
In the middle of his he's at like 72 saves in a row, and he's like, Bonds, I don't care.
Yeah.
Hit one out. And Bonds hit one out and he tipped his cap and then got the next guy out and kept his streak going. Like
That's
Bonds
right.
even hitting those home runs didn't break his streak. So it was
So as much as we loved this interview, it's always nice to hear feedback from people who also enjoyed it. Mike B on YouTube says, this is probably the best player interview the walk-off has done. Thank you, Mike. Glad you enjoyed. Eric Chartrand on YouTube also says, what a great interview. I could listen to Scott, Joel, and Eric talk baseball for hours. Well, glad to hear. We could talk baseball with Eric Gagne for hours too if he gave us the time. Last and not least, we'll leave on this. It is from the Walk-Off Instagram. David reached out and he said, hey guys, I just wanted to say, I know there's lots of comments coming in about everyone missing Adam Mack, and believe me, I do too, but I did want to send a message and mention how great Joel is. Great fill-in co-host, and I really enjoy him talking baseball. Great job. So there you go, buddy.
Thanks
Little
so
love
much.
your way. Yeah.
And we all echo that same sentiment. We all want Adam back as soon as possible. And
Absolutely.
I'm just happy to be around and be included in the meantime. So
well, we love having you on the show, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. To the grounds crew, thank you so much for all of the interaction over the last week. If you didn't get your questions or comments on, my apologies. I swear I do try and mix it up. I look for different names every week. Just keep dropping your comments. You can always reach out. DMs is a great way to do it because you're actually interacting with me personally, so you can bug me a little bit more. That is on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. Take care, everybody. Enjoy your week, and we will see you Friday.